easiest places to exist is to initially find out that your child has a learning disability. And one of the key things that we can do as occupational therapists and educational professionals is to differentiate between the myths and the realities of learning disabilities. Let's take a look.
Myth number 1. People with learning disabilities are not very smart. The reality is that kids with learning disabilities are just as smart as other kids. Intelligence has nothing to do with LD. In fact, people with LD have average to above average intelligence. Many have intellectual, artistic, or other abilities that permit them to be defined as gifted. Studies indicate that as many as 33% of students with LD are gifted.
Myth number 2. LD is just an excuse for irresponsible, unmotivated, or lazy people. The reality is that LD is caused by neurological impairments, not character flaws. For some people with LD, the effort required to get through a day can be exhausting in and of itself. The motivation required to do what others take for granted is enormous. Learning disabilities are problems in processing words or information, causing otherwise bright and capable children to have difficulty learning.
Myth number 3. LD only affects children. Adults grow out of the disorders. The reality is that it is now known that the effects of LD continue throughout the individual's lifespan, and may even intensify in adulthood as tasks and environmental demands change. Sadly, many adults, especially older adults, have never been formally diagnosed with LD. Learning disabilities cannot be outgrown, but they can be identified reliably in kindergarten or even earlier. Research clearly demonstrates that the earlier a child is given appropriate help for a learning disability, the more successful the outcome.
Myth number 4. Learning disabilities are only academic in nature. They do not affect other areas of a person's life. The reality is that some people with learning disabilities have isolated difficulties in reading, writing, or mathematics. However, most people with learning disabilities have more than one area of difficulty. It is asserted that learning disabilities are life disabilities. The same disabilities that interfere with reading, writing, and arithmetic in school also will interfere with other activities, family life, and in social settings. With recognition of their difficulties, appropriate help, and the development of their interests and talents, children with LD can learn to succeed both in school and beyond.
Myth number 5. Adults with a learning disability cannot succeed in higher education. The reality is that more and more adults with LD are going to college or university and succeeding. With the proper accommodations and support, adults with learning disabilities can be successful at higher education.
Myth number 6. Children with learning disabilities are mostly identified in kindergarten and first grade. The reality is that learning disabilities often go unrecognized for years. Most are not identified until third grade. Bright children can mask their difficulties, and some kinds of learning problems may not surface until middle school, high school, or even college.
Myth number 7. More boys than girls have learning disabilities. The reality is that although 3 times more boys than girls are identified by schools as having learning disabilities, research studies show that, in fact, equal numbers of boys and girls have the most common form of learning problem, difficulty with reading. Many girls' learning difficulties are neither identified nor treated.